Building on the insights of his best-selling book, 52 Weeks with Jesus, Dr. James Merritt has written a brand new devotional to bring renewal to all who want more of Jesus. A great companion devotional, or perfect on its own. Spend time with the one who changed everything. Get your copy of 52 Weeks with Jesus devotional from Touching Lives for $13, or get both books for just $20. Call 800-413-1131 or go to touchinglives.org.
Today on Touching Lives.
We get into these storms, and what's the first thing we tend to pray? And I'm as guilty as anybody else in this room. God, get me out of this. Right? God, get me out of this. And then when God doesn't do it like that, what's the next thing we say? God, when are you going to get me out of this? Isaiah comes along and says, that's not what you ought to be telling God. The next time you get into a storm, you shouldn't say, God, get me out of this. You shouldn't even say, God, when are you going to get me out of this? He said, this is what you ought to be saying. What should I get out of this?
With hope and encouragement for life, this is Touching Lives with James Merritt.
I want you to turn to a prophet in the Bible called Isaiah. It's, I don't know if you've got a Bible about as thick as mine, it's about maybe halfway, close to halfway. It's after Psalms, Proverbs, kind of go that way. You'll find a book called Isaiah. I want you to turn to Isaiah chapter 40. And as I throw the verse up on the screen, most of you are going to go, oh yeah, heard that verse, know that verse, read it and seen it many times. This was the second most popular verse in the last year that was shared all over the world. But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. We just sang that just a moment ago. Now, before we get into this text, let me put this text in context so you'll kind of understand what was going on. If you don't mind, I'm going to give you a real quick history lesson. I'm going to basically kind of teach you the Old Testament in about 2 minutes. Jerusalem is under siege. God has revealed to Jeremiah the country's not going to make it. I've told them, they won't listen. Now I'm going to give them what they wanted. They think they can do without me. Let's just see how well that works out for them. They are going to go into exile. They are going to fall. The city's going to be destroyed. The country's going to be desolate, and Judah will be no more. So I want you to listen. Let's go back one chapter and listen to these sad words. Behold, this is what God revealed to Jeremiah. The days are coming when all that is in your house, that is the house of Judah, and that which your fathers have stored up to this day, shall be carried to Babylon. And then listen to these sad words. Nothing shall be left, says the Lord. Well, when God told that to Isaiah, and Isaiah told that to the nation of Judah, he thought, well, there's really nothing left to do except just kind of wait on the trouble that I know is going to come, and the future's bleak. Time is short. The dam is broken. Nothing can stop the flood of God's judgment. War is about to come to the nation, and they are going to lose. And Isaiah knows that God's people are about to face the most difficult, the most trying, the most faith-testing time in their entire existence. The promised land, Jerusalem, the temple, is going to be lost, going to be captured, going to be destroyed. And at that moment in time, no one on that planet, no one in the world was more discouraged and more depressed and more disillusioned and more disappointed than this prophet named Isaiah, because he knew that God meant what he said, that God said what he meant, and he knew that nothing or no one was going to stop what was about to happen. Trouble had come to the door. And out of this darkness, God shines this ray of hope to this prophet. And he gives us this principle, this idea I want you to take out the door with you this morning. Here's what you're going to learn today. You don't have to fear when trouble is near, for God is always here. You don't have to fear when trouble is near, for God is always here. And in this passage we're going to study, God tells Isaiah, this is what you need to do when you know trouble is coming. This is what you need to do when you know the wolves are at the door. This is what you need to do, Isaiah, when everything looks hopeless, you feel completely helpless, when life becomes unbearable and the storm gets too strong, when you're out of hope and you're out of time, you're out of plans and you feel like quitting and you're tired and you're ready to give it all up. This is what you need to remember to do. And I promise you, if you'll listen up, write down 2 or 3 things. This is going to be for a lot of you in the days, weeks, and months and years to come. It will be your life raft in drowning waters when you think you're not going to make it. As he said, okay, Isaiah, number 1, you be confident in the Lord. When trouble comes, you be confident in the Lord. Now, again, remember, the city of Jerusalem and the Jewish people, they're not real happy about their situation. And what they couldn't believe was they still couldn't get it in their mind. You really are telling us, Isaiah, I know we're not a perfect people. I know we've disobeyed God, but are you really going to tell us that God's going to allow His holy city? God's going to allow this beautiful temple? God's going to allow this promised land? And God is going to allow His people to be taken over by these ruthless, cutthroat, unbelieving, pagan Babylonians? They were asking the same thing that we all tend to ask when we all get in trouble. Some of you are probably asking it right now. Does God even know what's happening in my life right now? I mean, does God hear my prayers? I keep praying and God doesn't do anything. Does God even care? As a matter of fact, this is what they were asking in verse 27. What God was saying to them, why do you say, O Jacob, and speak, O Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord, and my right is disregarded by my God. They were saying the same things that some of us have said when we get in trouble. Do you not even, are you looking? Are you awake? Are you on vacation? Have you gone? Do you not see the trouble that I'm in? Do you not hear my prayers? Do you not see how I'm walking the floor at night? Why don't you do something? Do you not care do you not listen when I call? What is going on with God? Well, God had heard enough of their complaints, and God had heard enough about their griping, and so this is what God replies. Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. Well, of course, the people knew about God. They had heard about God, but they had totally forgotten about God. They had forgotten who God was, and God said, let me just remind you, if you don't mind, of exactly who I am. I'm not just your ordinary run-of-the-mill dime-a-dozen God. I am the everlasting God. I'm not limited by time. I'm not restricted by space. I am both the creator and the controller of the universe. See, they did what you and I think sometimes we can do with God. They thought they could put God on the clock. You got to work, God, according to my timetable, and my timetable is now. They thought they could put God in a box. God, you not only got to do what I want you to do when I want you to do it, you got to do it the way I want you to do it. They thought they could put God to the test. They said, you know what? You just can't let those Babylonians take over. You just can't let this happen to us, or else you will be a total failure as a God. And God looked at them and said, let me tell you something. Let's get something straight. You're not going to put me on your clock, and you're not going to put me in your box, and you're not going to put me to the test. You're not going to do that to the everlasting God. And then he goes on to say this. He says, my understanding is unsearchable. Here's the second thing he says. Be patient with the Lord. Be patient with the Lord. You know, one of the things that Teresa and I have been married 39 years. One of the things that really irritates her, and rightly so, I'll admit this, one of the things that irritates her is I am by nature a fixer. And I don't mean physically. I can't fix anything physically. But I mean, you know, emotionally. I told you the other day, I'm not a good counselor. I have a hard time listening. And there are sometimes, you know, Teresa will sit down and she starts describing a problem. Like she's got a problem. And I'm just being honest. Sometimes I'll get impatient. And I just want her to, look, get to the bottom line and I'm going to help you fix your problem. Right? And there are times she'll just look at me and she'll say, look, I don't want you to fix this. I just want you just to listen to me. And that was probably the attitude of the people of Judah had when God gives them this piece of advice as they face their storm. He said this in verse 31, "They who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength." And I'm guaranteeing you, here's what they said right then. Wait. Wait. The Babylonians are at the door, Lord. We're about to lose everything, Lord. This whole country's about to go under, Lord, and you're telling us to wait? Wolves are at the door. We're about to be shut down. The end is near, and you want us to wait? Well, let me just tell you something. The word wait actually has two meanings. One meaning is just that. I mean, you just wait. And what God says to us is, you know, one of the greatest things you can do in a storm? Just get alone with me and just wait. Just get alone. Don't panic. Don't worry. I got things under control. As a matter of fact, the wisest man who ever lived said this about waiting. Solomon wrote these words, "Blessed is the one who listens to me, watching daily at my gates, waiting beside my doors." And what he's talking about here is just, rather than, walking the floor and going sleepless and wringing your hands and going, what in the world am I going to do? I don't think I can handle this. He says, look, just take that time to get alone with God, sit at his feet, be able to look at him and say, Lord, I know you're not on my timetable. I get that. And so I'm just going to wait for you to speak. I'm going to wait for you to move. And see, when you wait on God, here's what you're doing. When you finally come to a point where you say, Lord, I can't do anything else. All I can do is wait. Then you're finally getting it where you're saying, okay, Lord, I understand it now. I'm totally dependent on you. You see, God knows what he's talking about. Good things do. Be patient with the Lord. He'll come through, not on your timetable, on his. He'll come through. Be patient with the Lord. Be confident in the Lord. And this is the last thing, okay? Be obedient to the Lord. Be obedient to the Lord. Let me show you what, this is so pretty, so beautiful. Every time, and I'm like you, by the way, every time you've read that verse, I bet you thought the same thing I thought. Okay, wait on the Lord. So you think that means, okay, all right, I'm just whenever you're ready, I'm ready, do something. Well, in the Hebrew, that word actually has two meanings. It doesn't just mean to sit and do nothing. What it means is, while you're waiting on the Lord, you keep obeying the Lord. And you keep serving the Lord. And you keep following the Lord. And you keep doing whatever the Lord tells you to do. Because it doesn't just mean just wait till the Lord does something for you. It means, oh Lord, in the meantime, till you do whatever you're going to do for me, I'm going to do whatever I can for you. Now, let me tell you how. You know this, you just haven't thought about it. We've all had the experience of going into a store. If you go into a store, you'll find this out. You're kind of walking around, and you're maybe in a clothing store or a jewelry store or whatever, and you're looking around, and invariably, someone will come up to you, and what will they ask you? Has someone what? Has someone helped you or waited on you? Has someone waited on you? Well, what did they mean by that? They didn't mean, hey, has somebody been sitting over here in the corner just waiting on you to say something? That's not what they meant. What they mean is, has somebody served you? Has somebody taken your order? Has somebody done what you have asked them to do? Has someone met your needs? You take people who work in a restaurant. Back when I was growing up as a boy, people that worked in a restaurant, you call them a waiter or a waitress. That's not what they're called today. What are they called today? Servers. Today, I will be you'll hear this in a restaurant. I'm Anna, I'm James, I'm Tom. I will be your server. That's a great change because they're not a waiter. They don't just wait. They serve you. And what it means to wait on the Lord, it doesn't mean you just kind of sit in a hypnotic trance in the corner of the room till God moves. Now, when you go into a restaurant, you don't have people that just kind of sit around in the corner and kind of wait on you to get your own food, right? Well, sometimes in some restaurants that's happened to be, but rarely, right? I mean, that's not they're supposed to be proactive and come. Hey, can I take your order? Can I get you a drink? What would you like? I'll be right back, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What God told Isaiah was, look, Isaiah, don't sit and have a pity party. Don't sit here because you got trouble coming and there's not a thing you can do about it. In the meantime, you keep on obeying me. You keep on serving me. You keep on doing whatever I want you to do. Because let me tell you what happens. I've seen it happen so many times. So often we do just the opposite when we get into trouble. A storm hits. We go through a rough patch in our marriage. We lose our job. We find out we have cancer. And I've seen it happen time after time. What do people do? Drop out of church. Put their Bible on the shelf. Get mad at God. Why did you let this happen? And the very moment they need God the most, they check out. The very moment they need the encouragement of the church, they darken the door. They don't darken the doors. They saturate the church with their absence. And God says that's totally, by the way, can I just help you on something? If you're in the middle of a storm right now and you've been tempted to check out on God, I just want to help you on one thing. That is not going to help your storm get better. That is not going to make things easier for you. It's just going to make things more difficult for you. Too often that's what we do. We just, I forget God, forsake God, question God, quit on God. It just makes the storm worse. But to those who say, I'm going to wait on the Lord. I'm going to be confident in the Lord. I'm going to be patient with the Lord. I'm going to be obedient to the Lord. God said this is what will happen. They who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. Now, God has a purpose for everything. Why does God give that analogy? Why does God say, hey, if you'll keep trusting, keep obeying, keep serving, just stay faithful, you will mount up on wings like eagles? Well, first of all, here's what God is saying. When a storm hits you, if you'll be confident and you'll be patient and you'll be obedient, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll help you fly above the storm. I'll help you soar over the storm. Let me tell you something. I've heard people say this. I used to say this, and I don't say it anymore. I've had people, I'll say, hey, how are you doing? And they'll say something like this. Well, I'm doing okay under the circumstances. Let me tell you something. If you are a child of the living God, you're not under your circumstances. You're under His authority. He's over every circumstance. So let's get that straight right now. I don't live under my circumstances. I soar over my circumstances. I'm not under my circumstances. I'm under His authority. And He says, I want you to fly like the eagle. Now, first of all, let's thank God He didn't say turkey. He said, I want you to fly like the eagle. Well, let me tell you something. So I went back. I said, well, now, why would God pick out the eagle when I found this out? Eagles are amazing birds. They can fly up to an altitude of 10,000 feet. Their wings have 7,000 feathers. They fly on average at 50 miles an hour, and they can get up to speeds of over 100 miles an hour. Listen to this. They have very unusual eyes. They have 1 million light-sensitive cells per square millimeter of retina, which is 5 times more than that of a human being. While human beings can see 3 colors, they can see 5 colors. They can see 7 times better than we can. Let me give you a comparison. At 1,000 feet in the air, a bald eagle can spot prey over 3 square miles. Did you hear that? At 1,000 feet, they can spot prey over 3 square miles. Now let's compare that. A balding pastor can see a tithe and an offering 3 pews away. See, it's so much big, it's so much better. Let me tell you something else. They can see forward and sideways at the same time. Are you ready for this? When they're flying at 5,000 feet, they can see a rabbit 2 miles away. It's incredible what an eagle can do. But that's not the most amazing thing. When I said that, but God, there's something more to this. This is what amazes me. This is what's fascinating. Every other bird in the world, this is true, every other bird on the planet, with the exception of the eagle, when a bird senses a storm is coming, you know what that bird will do? It seeks shelter. Every other bird in the world, when a bird sees or hears or knows a storm is coming, they will try to fly away from the storm. The eagle is the only bird that we know of in existence that doesn't fly away from the storm. It flies into the storm. And you say, well, why would an eagle do that? Eagles love storms. You know why? Because they know that those thermal updrafts can cause them to soar higher and to fly higher than they would ever rise before. See, a storm is no threat to an eagle. You know why a storm is no threat to an eagle? They fly above the storm. They fly over the storm. In other words, a storm, now listen to this, here's what a storm does for an eagle. It enables the eagle to see better and to fly higher. Now, I hope this helps you as much as anything, because I realize there's a lot of storm clouds in this building. I realize there are a lot of you put on your Sunday morning face, you smiled, you said hello, you kind of tried to seem happy, but right now, whether it's because of your marriage or your job situation, your finances, your health, or your kids or your grandkids or whatever, you're under a big storm cloud right now, and you're really not a very happy person, and you don't know what you're going to do. Let me just tell you what God was saying to Isaiah. Listen carefully. God says, if you will let me, right in the middle of your storm, I'll take you to fly with me. I will enable you to have my perspective. I'll make you able to see things through my eyes. I want you to see your storm and your trouble from my point of view. And you say, well, God, what is your point of view? God says, I'll tell you what my point of view is. Storms don't control me. I control storms. I don't get under storms. I go over storms. I soar above storms. I'm in control of all the thunder. I hold in my hand every bolt of lightning. And as long as you fly with me, you don't have to fear any storm whatsoever. That's the kind of God that we serve. That's the kind of God that loves us. And then God, this is what he goes on to say. He is so thorough in this. He goes on to say this. He said, if you'll wait, you will run, but you won't be weary. See, God's not just above the storm, God's also in the storm. And God says, look, I get it. There are times in your life when you just have to run. There are times in your life, we all know it, you've got deadlines to meet. You've got a crisis to deal with. You've got a project that you've got to finish. And you've got to do it quickly, and you don't have to. You have got to run. There are just times in our life, let's just be honest, we just can't afford to slow down. You've got to run. God says, okay, when you run, when you're just in a dead heat, and that's what you've got to do, here's what you've got to remember. God will give you the strength to do every day all that he calls you to do. God will give you the strength every day to do what he calls you to do. See, doctors tell us that when an emergency hits us, our bodies release this strength that we never knew we had. Our glands go to work. And they start pouring adrenaline into our bloodstream, and we're able to do absolutely incredible things. And here's what God says. God says, I have an infinite supply of spiritual adrenaline. And when that storm hits you, don't you worry about it. You will run, but you will not grow weary. I will give you the strength to do every day everything that I have called you to do. And then he closes by saying this, they shall walk and not faint. And let me tell you what he's talking about there. In an average day, most of us, if you're like me, in an average day, you don't run a lot, but you walk a lot. I mean, that's just kind of life. You know, you just get up and you just got things you got to do and things to get done. And you just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other. In fact, I'll just make a very candid confession with you. I hope you're like me. There's some days I get up and I feel like Jesus and I are just like that. I mean, I have a great quiet time and I'm excited about the day. And man, I'm just running on all cylinders all day long. And I get to the end of the day and I'm not even tired. But I'm going to be real honest. There are days I feel like God's a million miles away. I read my Bible, it's dry as dust. I pray, I feel like it's bouncing off the ceiling. And maybe I've got a difficult appointment I'm dealing with that day or a problem, you know what? And you know what I'm talking about. There are days you just keep trying to put one. Can y'all relate to me? Am I just up here preaching to me? I just feel like, you know what I'm saying? You just feel like, gosh almighty, can I just keep putting one foot in front of the other? And God says, look, if you'll walk with me, you won't faint. You won't fall. You won't fail. You will make it to the end of the day. And God says, listen, if you'll be confident in me, if you'll be patient with me, and you'll be obedient to me, you'll fly higher than the storm, you'll run faster in the storm, and you'll walk longer through the storm. Because see, here's what we're tempted to do, and I'm finished. What we're all tempted to do is, when we see a storm coming, we want to fly away from the storm. Or we want to run away from the storm. Or we want to walk away from the storm. Because if you're like me, and I'm being transparent, Jason's talking about being transparent, I'm going to be transparent. We get into these storms, and what's the first thing we tend to pray? And I'm as guilty as anybody else in this room. God, get me out of this. Right? God, get me out of this. And then, when God doesn't do it like that, what's the next thing we say? God, when are you going to get me out of this? Isaiah comes along and says, that's not what you ought to be telling God. The next time you get into a storm, you shouldn't say, God, get me out of this. You shouldn't even say, God, when are you going to get me out of this? He said, this is what you ought to be saying. What should I get out of this? God, what are you trying to teach me? Well, I'll tell you what I'm trying to teach you. Wait on me. Just be patient. Be confident. I am the everlasting God. I've got it under control. Be obedient. So let me just wrap this up. Go back to those Jewish people. The Babylonians did win. And the temple was destroyed. The city was razed to the ground. Families were torn apart, some never to see each other or their blessed promised land again. And they had to wait. They waited 100 years, 200 years, 300 years, 400 years, 500 years, 600 years, 700 years. And after 800 years, there was the cry of a little baby in a manger in a little town called Bethlehem. And God said, I told you I keep my word. I told you I know what I'm doing. I know you need hope when you're hopeless. I know you need help when you're helpless. And have I ever got the answer for you? And his name is Jesus. Good things come to those who wait. And nothing proves it more than a baby that grew up, lived a perfect life, died on a cross, and came back from the dead so he could say to all of us, you be confident, you be patient, you be obedient, and you'll be victorious.
Have you ever heard of being battle weary? Sometimes we use all of the biblical principles we know to use, pray all of the prayers we know to pray, and we win battle after battle. But that doesn't mean we can't get spiritually tired. If that sounds like you today, call Touching Lives at 800-413-1131. Let's pray together as you wait on the Lord to renew your strength.
November 30th through December 4th, join James and Teresa Merritt for the 6th Annual Mountaintop Conference, featuring Overwhelmed But Not Broken. 3 power-packed teaching sessions from Dr. James Merritt. We'll have special evenings with Luke Zamperini, Will Graham, and musical entertainment at the Smoky Mountain Opry. There's even an optional day at Dollywood. Meet us on the mountain November 30th through December 4th in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. Call 800-523-3919 or visit mountaintopconference.com for all the details.
There isn't a person alive who hasn't found themselves in the middle of a bad situation where they need help. But do they know where to look? The ministry of Touching Lives exists to raise the banner of Jesus so that all can know that they can call on Him for help. Because of your faithful prayers and financial support, this message of hope is being shared for all to hear.